The air in the Galactic Council chamber was heavy, thick with silence and something sharper, judgment. High above the polished black floor, a ring of alien delegates hovered in their gravity chairs, their forms as varied as the stars they came from. Some had skin like polished stone, others shimmered like liquid metal, and a few existed as swirling clouds of light. All of them watched the small group standing alone in the center of the chamber. At the front stood Commander Elira Voss. She wore a simple gray uniform with no medals, no insignia of rank beyond a small Earth emblem on her collar. Behind her, two younger diplomats, Kale and Mira, stood stiffly, their faces carefully blank. But their hands trembled slightly at their sides. They knew what this place meant. The Galactic Council did not summon species for praise. It summoned them for sentencing. For weeks, the Council had debated humanity's fate. Earth had been accused of breaking the Prime Accord, the oldest law in the galaxy. The charge? Developing quantum weave technology, something forbidden to all but the Council's inner circle. The penalty could be anything from trade embargoes to full planetary quarantine. Some even whispered of forced deindustrialization. Earth would be stripped of its starships, its networks, its voice among the stars. The Velnari delegate, a tall being with 6 jointed arms and eyes like black glass, had already submitted a motion for immediate sanctions. The Cathari, emotionless and precise, had begun calculating enforcement routes. To them, humanity was a child playing with fire, reckless, loud, and dangerous. Elira took a slow breath. The chamber's gravity field pressed down harder than standard, a subtle test of endurance. Most species buckled under it within minutes. Humans, the Council believed, would break faster. But Elira did not flinch. She stepped forward, her boots clicking softly against the obsidian floor. The sound echoed strangely in the vast dome, as if the chamber itself was listening. "Before you pass judgment," she said, her voice calm but clear, "you should understand what you are truly judging." A ripple passed through the delegates. No one spoke out of turn in this chamber. It was unheard of. The presiding arbiter, a Murthian elder named Orlan, leaned forward. His skin shifted colors with his mood, now a deep violet of impatience. "You stand accused, human. Not invited to lecture." "I'm not lecturing," Elira replied. "I'm offering context." She tapped a small device on her wrist. A hologram bloomed in the air between her and the ring of judges. Not of weapons, not of warships, but of Earth. Images flickered. Cities rising from ruins, forests regrowing over battlefields, children learning in makeshift classrooms after disasters. A planet that had burned itself nearly to ash twice and still found a way to rebuild. "You see chaos," Elira said. "We see resilience. You see biology too fragile for the stars. We see minds that adapt faster than any species you've catalogued." The Cathari delegate tilted its smooth, featureless head. "Adaptation is not an excuse for breaking galactic law." "No," Elira agreed. "But understanding is." She gestured and the hologram changed. Now it showed schematics, not of weapons, but of energy grids, medical nanites, atmospheric scrubbers. All labeled with human symbols, all humming with quiet efficiency. "What you call forbidden technology," she continued, "was born from a problem you ignored. Your quantum weave networks leak radiation that poisons low-gravity worlds like ours. For decades we asked for help. You told us to adjust." She paused. "So we fixed it ourselves," murmurs rose. The Velnari shifted in their seats. The Cathari remained still, but their internal lights flickered, a sign of alarm. Then, without warning, every light in the chamber went out, not dimmed. Not flickered, snuffed out like candles in a storm. Darkness swallowed the dome. Total. Absolute. Kyle gasped. Mira reached for Elira's arm. For 3 heartbeats, there was nothing but silence and the sound of alien breaths held in shock. Then, light returned. But something was wrong. Every delegate looked down at their personal consoles. Their shields, their chronometers, even the tiny bioreaders embedded in their skin. All of them now displayed the same time. 1437 Earth Standard, a human time. On alien bodies, the Murthian arbiter stood so fast his chair hissed and retracted. "What is this?" he demanded, voice cracking. Elira turned slowly, meeting his gaze. "We didn't hack your systems," she said. "We rebuilt them." A stunned silence followed. "You see," she explained, "while you debated whether to punish us, Our engineers studied your infrastructure, not to invade, not to control, but to understand. She walked to the edge of the central platform where a data conduit ran beneath the floor. She knelt and placed her palm flat against the surface. Your networks use harmonic frequencies you can't even hear. But we can. We've spent centuries listening, to earthquakes, to ocean tides, to the hum of our own planet. So when your signals leaked into our space, we didn't just receive them. We learned their song. She stood again. In the last 72 hours, using nothing but resonance pulses and passive energy fields, we rewired your entire chamber network. Not to take it over, but to prove we understand it better than you do. The Velnari delegate rose, all 6 arms raised in alarm. This is an act of war. No, Elira said firmly. It's an act of demonstration. If we wanted war, you'd already be blind. If we wanted control, your ships would be drifting. But we chose to show you something else. She looked around at the stunned faces, some fearful, some furious, a few curious. We chose to show you that humanity doesn't break under pressure. We learn, we adapt, and sometimes we rebuild what's broken, even if it wasn't ours to fix. The Cathari delegate finally spoke, its voice a flat hum. Why reveal this now? Why not keep it hidden? Elira smiled faintly. Because strength hidden is no strength at all. And we're tired of being seen as weak. The chamber fell silent again, but this time it was different. The air no longer felt heavy with judgment. It felt charged with uncertainty, with awe, with the first stirrings of doubt. The presiding arbiter sat back down slowly. His skin shifted to a deep blue. Contemplation. The council will reconsider its position, he said at last. Elira nodded. She didn't bow. She didn't thank them. She simply turned and walked back to her team. As they exited the chamber, the great doors sealing behind them with a soft hiss, Kale whispered, "Do you think they'll believe us?" Elira looked up at the artificial sky of the council spire, where real stars glittered beyond the dome. "They don't have to believe us," she said. "They just have to understand that we're not what they thought." And somewhere deep in the heart of the station, a human-made resonance pulse continued to hum. Quiet, steady, and utterly in control. Not as a threat, but as a promise. The galaxy had spent centuries underestimating humanity. Today, that ended. The judgment chamber's silence had not brought peace. It had only planted seeds of fear. In the weeks after Commander Elira Voss's demonstration, Earth's name echoed through the galaxy, not with respect, but with suspicion. Trade convoys rerouted to avoid human space. Surveillance drones lingered near Sol's outer colonies. Even neutral species began whispering that humanity had hidden claws beneath soft words. But Earth made no move to strike back. No warships launched, no threats broadcast. Instead, human freighters kept delivering medical supplies to plague-stricken worlds. Scientists shared climate models with dying planets. Teachers opened virtual classrooms to alien students. The message was clear: we are not your enemy. Yet enemies were already moving in the dark. Deep in the Proxima Centauri asteroid belt, far from prying eyes, a Cathari strike team prepared their final weapon. It was not a bomb, not a beam, not even a virus. It was a neural dampener, a device designed to erase short-term memory across an entire moon. Their target, Luna Colony, Earth's largest off-world research hub, home to over 200,000 scientists, engineers, and families. The Cathari believed this act would go unnoticed. The dampener left no physical trace. Victims would simply wake up confused, unable to recall who they were, what they did, or why they mattered. Within days, Luna would collapse into chaos. Earth would be forced to abandon it, and the galaxy would see humanity's resilience as a lie. The operation was set for 0300 station time. Silent, clean, final. But someone heard the whisper aboard the scout vessel, Wayfarer, drifting near the edge of human-controlled space. Dr. Rentalik sat alone in the comms bay. He was not a soldier, not a spy, just a xenolinguist who had once studied dead alien languages for fun. Now he listened to the void. For 3 nights he had caught a faint echo in subspace traffic, a pattern too regular to be natural, too broken to be standard Cathari code. At first he thought it was noise, then he realized it was a ghost of a message, bouncing off a derelict satellite. Buried in the static was a phrase from an ancient Cathari dialect. "Mine shall forget the hand that built it." Ren's blood ran cold. That phrase appeared only in old military texts describing neural dampeners. He cross-referenced the signal's origin with gravitational readings from the Proxima Belt. The match was perfect. A cloaked vessel was hiding there, its mass distorting local space just enough to leave a fingerprint. The attack wasn't coming in days. It was coming in hours. Wren alerted Earth Command immediately, but the reply was cold and firm. Do not escalate. Maintain diplomatic posture. We show restraint even now. Restraint. The word felt like a chain. Wren stared at the star map on his screen. Luna Colony glowed softly, a tiny blue-white dot orbiting Earth's gray moon. His sister worked there. So did his former professor. Thousands of lives all about to be erased. He made a choice. In the ship's engineering bay, he found what he needed, a prototype resonance beacon. It wasn't a weapon. It had been designed to harmonize with planetary cores during terraforming, sending gentle pulses to stabilize tectonic plates. But Wren knew sound could be shaped, and silence could be broken. He reprogrammed the beacon, tuning its frequency not to rock or metal, but to the exact harmonic signature of the Cathari dampener's activation sequence. He didn't want to destroy it. He wanted to turn it against itself. At 0245 station time, the Wayfarer drifted into position just outside the Proxima Belt. Wren activated the beacon. A low hum filled the ship, so deep it vibrated in the bones. The pulse shot out, not as a blast but as a whisper riding on the same subspace channel the Cathari used. Inside the cloaked vessel, alarms blared too late. The dampener, primed and ready, received the pulse as a command, its polarity inverted. Instead of targeting Luna, it turned inward. On the Cathari bridge, officers froze. Their memories flickered like dying lights. Names vanished. Orders dissolved. The mission, why were they here? Who were they? The ship's logs scrambled. Navigation systems reset to default. Even their personal implants went blank. By 0300, the strike team was adrift, confused, calling out in broken voices for someone to tell them where they were. Back on the Wayfarer, Wren watched the data stream. The dampener was silent. Luna was safe, but his job wasn't done. He opened a comms channel, not to Earth Command, but to the Cathari vessel. This is Dr. Wren Talek of the human vessel, Wayfarer, he said, voice steady. You appear to be experiencing system failures. Do you require assistance? Silence. Then a shaky voice replied, Who are you? We're nearby, Wren said gently. We can help you recalibrate your systems. No weapons. No demands. Just help. An hour later, human rescue shuttles arrived. They docked with the Cathari ship not as conquerors but as neighbors. Technicians handed over data pads with recovery protocols. Medics offered neural stabilizers. One young human engineer even brought warm nutrient packs. In case you're hungry, she said with a small smile. The Cathari officers stared, bewildered. They had come to erase a world. Instead, they were being offered tea. News of the incident never reached official channels. The Cathari High Command erased all records of the failed mission, but word spread in whispers among lower ranks, among traitors, among spies. Humanity hadn't fired a shot, hadn't captured a single prisoner, yet they had stopped a secret war before it began, and treated the enemy like lost friends. On Earth, Elira Voss received a private message from Wren. She read it once, then again. She didn't smile, but her shoulders relaxed for the first time in weeks. In the council chambers, tension simmered. The Velnari accused Earth of mind tricks. The Cathari remained silent, an unusual sign. But the Xylosian monks, observers of truth, sent a single message to all members. Watch how they act when no one is looking. That is who they are. Meanwhile, on Luna Colony, children played in domed gardens under artificial sunlight. Scientists debated quantum theories over coffee. No one knew how close they had come to forgetting everything. Wren returned to the Wayfarer, exhausted but calm. He looked out at the stars and thought of his sister. She would never know what he had done, and that was fine. Humanity didn't need glory. They needed to protect what mattered. But the galaxy was watching now, and what it saw was not a species of warriors or tyrants. It saw a people who could stop a war with a song, and that frightened some far more than any weapon ever could, because you could shield against lasers. You could armor against missiles. But how do you defend against kindness that sees your weakness and chooses to heal it instead of using it? The Cathari strike team was escorted back to their home fleet, their memories slowly returning. But something had changed. They spoke of the humans not with hatred but with quiet awe. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, other powers began to wonder, if Earth could do this to the Cathari, what could they do to us? But Earth wasn't planning anything. They were simply living, building, sharing, and in doing so, they were rewriting the rules of power, not with force, but with the quiet certainty that true strength lies not in how hard you can hit, but in how far you're willing to reach to lift someone else up. The galaxy had expected fire. Instead, it found light. The fragile calm after the Proxima incident did not last. Suspicion still clung to Earth like static. Trade resumed, but eyes remained watchful. The Galactic Council had not punished humanity, but neither had it trusted them. To many, humans were a riddle wrapped in kindness, and riddles made poor allies. Then came the summons. Not to a judgment chamber this time, but to the Triennial Accord Summit on Xylos Prime, a world of stone spires, silent monks and laws older than most star systems. The summit gathered every major species to renew the Galactic Peace Accords. Attendance was mandatory for all council members. And now, Earth was invited. Commander Elira Voss was chosen again as envoy. Many thought it a trap. Xylos Prime forbade all weapons, even defensive ones. No energy shields. No comms jammers. Nothing but the clothes on your back and your mind. For a species still under scrutiny, it was a dangerous place to be alone. Elira accepted without hesitation. She arrived with only 2 aides, Kale and Mira, the same diplomats who had stood with her in the judgment chamber. They wore simple robes provided by Xylosian protocol, their Earth uniforms stored away. No tech, no tools, just people. From the moment they landed, they were isolated. Other delegations avoided them in the stone corridors. Meals were taken in silence. Their quarters, though clean and cool, were bugged with sonic snares, subtle frequencies designed to stir anxiety, doubt, even paranoia. Most species cracked within days under such pressure, but Elira did not react. Instead, she spent her mornings walking the meditation gardens, tracing the patterns of moss and stone with her fingers. She spoke little, but when she did, it was to the Xylosian caretakers, quiet beings with skin like weathered bark and eyes that held centuries of stillness. She asked no questions about the summit. She did not plead Earth's case. She simply listened. On the 3rd day, an old caretaker named Vane offered her a cup of steaming root tea. "You do not fight the silence," he said, his voice like wind through dry reeds. "You let it speak," Elira nodded. "On Earth, we say the same thing. The quietest voice often carries the deepest truth." Vane studied her. "Then you may hear what others cannot." The summit opened in the Great Hall, a vast open-air amphitheater carved from a single mountain. Delegates sat in tiered rings, each species in its own section. At the center stood the Lattice of Unmaking. It was an ancient artifact, older than the Council itself. A web of crystalline threads, no larger than a human chest, suspended in midair by unseen forces. Legend said it responded to thought, but only to thoughts that were pure, focused, and unafraid. Any attempt to force it would cause it to unravel the mind of the user. No species had ever solved it. Many had tried. Some never recovered. The presiding arbiter rose. "To prove worthiness for full council membership," he announced, "each delegation shall attempt the lattice. Success is not required, but courage is." One by one, species stepped forward. The Velnari sent their strongest logician. He touched the lattice and screamed as his mind flooded with every regret he had ever buried. He collapsed, twitching. The Cathari deployed a drone, hoping to bypass flesh. The lattice shattered the drone instantly, then pulsed with red light. A warning. A gas being from the Andromeda Rim tried to envelop it in thought form. The lattice absorbed the being's consciousness and held it for 3 hours before releasing it, dazed and silent. By midday, hope faded. The lattice remained unsolved, humming softly in the center of the hall like a sleeping beast. Then Elira stood. A hush fell. Some delegates shifted nervously. Others leaned forward, curious despite themselves. She walked to the center, barefoot on the cool stone. She did not reach for the lattice. She did not speak to it. She simply sat cross-legged before it, closed her eyes, and began to hum. It was a low, steady tone, barely audible at first, but it carried. It was the frequency of Earth's natural electromagnetic field, the Schumann resonance, the planet's heartbeat. Humans had known it for centuries, felt it in storms, in deep forests, in the quiet between breaths. The lattice reacted. Its crystalline threads began to vibrate, not chaotically, but in harmony. Light pulsed through them, not red, not warning, but soft blue, like dawn over an ocean. Patterns emerged. Equations formed in the air. Star maps unfolded. The lattice wasn't being solved, it was being understood. Elira kept humming, her voice blending with the planet's song. The Zelosian monks rose as one. Even the Arbiter stood, his violet skin shifting to gold. Awe. Then, with a final chime, the lattice expanded. Not physically, but in meaning. It projected a star chart no one in the chamber recognized, a spiral of stars with a single world glowing at its heart. Data scrolled beside it. Atmospheric composition, gravity, biosigns. A habitable world lost for 10,000 years. The Xylosian elder Vane stepped into the circle. He bowed deeply to Elira. "You did not solve the puzzle," he said, voice trembling. "You listened to it." And it answered. The hall remained silent for a long time, not out of fear, but reverence. Later, in private, the Arbiter met with Elira. "How did you know?" he asked. "I didn't," she replied. "But on Earth, we learn early that not everything needs to be controlled. Sometimes you just need to be still enough to hear what's already there." The summit ended not with treaties, but with questions. Delegates approached Elira not to accuse, but to ask. How did humans endure so much? How did they rebuild after falling? How did they hear what others could not? She answered simply. "We pay attention. To our world. To each other. To the quiet things." As she prepared to leave Xylos Prime, Vane gave her a small stone warm to the touch. "Carry this," he said. "So you remember that silence is not empty. It is full of answers." Back aboard her transport, Elira held the stone in her palm. Outside, stars glittered like scattered seeds. She thought of Earth, not as a planet of weapons or wonders, but as a place where children still looked up at the night sky and asked, "What's out there?" And because they asked, humanity kept listening. The galaxy had expected a show of power. Instead, it witnessed patience, and in that patience, it found something far more dangerous than forced truth. For the first time, other species wondered if humanity's strength wasn't in what they built, but in what they chose not to break. The lattice of unmaking had not tested intelligence or strength. It had tested humility. And Earth, scarred and stubborn, had passed, not with a shout, but with a song. Peace talks had begun. The mood in the Galactic Council was shifting. After the lattice of unmaking, even the harshest critics of Earth spoke with less certainty. Delegates exchanged data packets instead of threats. Human scientists were invited to joint research stations. For the first time, Earth was not just tolerated, it was being considered. Then the convoy vanished, the Helios Rift supply fleet, carrying food, medicine, and energy cells for 3 Outer Rim colonies, disappeared without a trace. No distress call. No wreckage. Just empty space where 12 ships should have been. Within hours, evidence surfaced. Surveillance drones from a neutral system captured grainy footage. Sleek dark vessels with Earth's insignia on their hulls. The ships moved with unnatural silence, vanishing into the rift like ghosts. The Council was outraged. The Velnari demanded immediate sanctions. The Kethari called for a full blockade of Sol space. Earth denied involvement. "We have no military presence near the Helios Rift," Commander Elira Voss stated in an emergency broadcast. "Our nearest vessel is 3 sectors away." But the proof seemed undeniable. The ships bore Earth's markings. Their flight patterns matched human stealth protocols. Even their engine harmonics, captured in the drone's audio logs, sounded like Luna-built reactors. The Council prepared to vote on punitive action. Meanwhile, aboard the research station Oryx 7, Dr. Ren Talik stared at the same footage on a flickering screen. He had been reassigned after the Proxima incident, not as punishment but as a quiet reward. Now he worked with alien linguists, decoding ancient trade records, but his mind kept returning to the vanished convoy. Something felt wrong. He replayed the engine harmonics. Human reactors hummed at a base frequency of 47.3 Hz, tuned to Earth's rotation. But this sound, it was close yet slightly off, like a voice mimicking another but missing the soul behind it. He ran a spectral analysis. Buried beneath the surface noise was a faint echo, a harmonic signature used only by Velnari deep space forges. Not human, never human. His hands flew across the console. He cross-referenced the drone footage with known Velnari ship designs. Nothing matched, but when he filtered out the Earth insignia, digitally peeling it away like old paint, he found something beneath, a hidden symbol. A broken spiral, the mark of the Velnari exiles, a rogue faction, banished decades ago for weaponizing forbidden tech. They had been silent since Ren's blood ran cold. This wasn't just sabotage, it was a frame job, and it was working. He sent his findings to Earth Command, to the Council, to every neutral observer he could reach. The reply from the Council was swift and cold. Your claims lack proof. Human involvement remains the only logical conclusion. Earth Command ordered him to stand down. Do not interfere. Let the diplomats handle this. But Ren knew time was running out. If the Council voted for sanctions, war would follow. And the real enemy would watch from the shadows laughing. Then came worse news. A coded message slipped through a civilian comms channel reached him late that night. It was from an old contact in the Cathari data archives. 2 words. Oryx Core. Ren's breath caught. Oryx Station, the Council's central data hub, orbited just outside the Helios Rift. It stored every law, treaty, and historical record of the galaxy. And it was due for a routine maintenance cycle in 48 hours. He connected the dots. The fake attack. The false evidence. The timing. They weren't just trying to start a war. They were going to erase the galaxy's memory. Deep inside Oryx Station, hidden in the main data core, the exiles had planted a resonance bomb. Not explosive, not radioactive, but designed to emit a pulse that would scramble every stored memory. Legal, historical, cultural. Centuries of galactic civilization would vanish in a single heartbeat. In the chaos, the exiles would rise, claiming to restore order, and humanity would take the blame. Ren knew he couldn't stop it alone. But Earth couldn't act openly. The Council wouldn't listen, so he did the one thing humans did best. He shared knowledge. He didn't send weapons. He didn't send soldiers. He sent lessons. Working through back channels, he uploaded a simple training module to every public education network linked to Oryx Station. It was titled, Harmonic Anomaly Detection for Civilian Technicians. Inside were basic exercises, how to hear distortions in power grids, how to spot unnatural frequencies in coolant systems, how to use a tuning fork to test resonance in metal. It looked like a harmless science tutorial, but it was a map to the bomb. Within a day, hundreds of station workers, Cathari engineers, Zelosian monks, even young Velnari interns, were practicing the exercises. They didn't know why. They just thought it was interesting. On the day of the maintenance cycle, a Xylosian monk named Taylor was checking coolant lines near the data core. She paused. The hum of the pipes, it was slightly sharp, like a note out of tune. She pulled out a small tuning fork, one she'd bought after watching the tutorial, and struck it gently. The sound clashed with the pipe's vibration. She reported it. A Cathari technician arrived, skeptical at first. But he ran the same test. Then another. Soon a team gathered. They traced the anomaly to a sealed access panel behind the core housing. Inside, they found it. A smooth black sphere, pulsing with a low, wrong sound. The bomb. Panic spread. Evacuation orders blared, but disarming it required precision. One wrong move and the pulse would fire. Then a young human engineer, part of a civilian exchange program, stepped forward. Her name was Lyra. She had come to Oryx to study alien architecture, not to fuse bombs, but she knew resonance. She asked for a tuning fork calibrated to Luna's moonlight frequency, a sound humans use to calm seismic activity on their moon. It was a gentle tone, barely audible. She held it near the bomb. The device responded. Its pulse slowed. The wrongness faded. With careful adjustments, she matched its frequency exactly. The bomb didn't explode. It powered down like a lullaby, putting a child to sleep. Silence returned to the core. The Council arrived hours later, expecting disaster. Instead, they found calm, cooperation, and a disarmed weapon that bore Velnari exile markings. The truth unraveled quickly. The fake Earthships, the planted evidence, the hidden agenda. The real villains were exposed, but the galaxy didn't cheer for justice. It stared at the humans, because Earth hadn't sent a fleet, hadn't demanded credit, hadn't even been allowed in the room, yet their knowledge, shared freely, quietly, without expectation, had saved everything. The presiding arbiter stood in the data core, looking at Lyra. "You taught them how to hear?" he said, voice quiet. She shrugged. "We all listen. Some just need to be shown how." In the days that followed, the Council dropped all charges against Earth. The Velnari government issued a formal apology. Trade routes reopened wider than before, but something deeper had changed. Alien children began asking for human music. Engineers requested Earth's open-source tech manuals. Philosophers quoted human poets in debates. Humanity hadn't won with force. They had won by giving others the tools to save themselves, and in doing so, they had proven their true strength, not in what they could take, but in what they were willing to give. The galaxy had expected a battle. Instead, it found a classroom, and for the first time, everyone wanted to learn. The final session of the Galactic Council began not with fanfare but with quiet. The Great Chamber, once a place of judgment and fear, now felt different. Delegates did not sit in isolated rings. They sat in interwoven circles, species beside species, some even sharing data pads or cups of nutrient tea. The air no longer hummed with suspicion. It hummed with something new, curiosity. At the center stood Commander Elira Voss. She wore the same simple gray uniform as before, but this time, no one saw weakness in its plainness. They saw choice. Humanity could have worn armor, could have brought banners, could have demanded a throne. Instead, they came as they were, human. The presiding arbiter, Orlan, rose. His skin glowed a soft silver, the color of resolution. "The charges against Earth are dismissed," he announced. "Not because we were forced, but because we were shown." A murmur passed through the chamber, not of protest but of agreement. Elira stepped forward. She did not smile. She did not boast. She simply spoke. "You thought strength was firepower," she said, her voice clear and calm. "Dominance, control. But true strength is the courage to understand, to adapt, to lift others even when you've been cast down." She paused, letting the words settle. "For decades, Earth has been listening, not just to your laws or your threats, but to your silence. We heard the pain in your broken worlds, the fear in your guarded borders, the hope in your quiet questions." She tapped her wrist device, not to show weapons or defenses, but a star map. Thousands of points glowed across it. "This," she said, "is what we've been sending into the void." The map zoomed in. Each point was a signal, not of war, but of help. Blueprints for clean fusion reactors that used seawater, algorithms to predict solar flares years in advance, medical harmonics that could heal neural damage using sound alone, all encoded in the natural background radiation of space, broadcast silently from Earth's deep space arrays. "We didn't shout," Elira said. "We whispered, hoping someone would listen. No one had, until now." The Xylosian elder Vane stood. "You gave without asking for return." "We had to," Elira replied, "because we once stood where you stand, lost, broken, afraid. And someone long ago showed us kindness. We never forgot." The Kethari delegate, once cold and unreadable, spoke next. "Your knowledge is generous, but why share it with those who called you enemy?" "Because enemies are just friends who haven't been understood yet," she said. Silence filled the chamber again, but this time it was full, not empty. Then Orlan made the announcement. "By unanimous vote, Earth is granted full membership in the Galactic Council, not as a subject, not as a junior partner, but as a guide in resilience." No cheers erupted, no grand music played, but something deeper happened. Delegates turned to the humans among them, not with suspicion but with respect. A Velnari engineer handed Kyle a data chip. "Your atmospheric model saved our southern continent," he said quietly. A young Cathari student asked Mira how to say thank you in Earth's oldest language. Outside the chamber on the observation deck, Ren Talik stood beside Lyra, the engineer who had disarmed the bomb. They watched the stars together. "They finally see us," Lyra said. "Not just us," Ren replied. They see what we believe in. Back inside, Elira accepted the Council's seal, a small disk of star metal etched with Earth's symbol. But she did not wear it on her chest. She placed it in her pocket. Later, as the session ended, she walked alone through the garden courtyards of the Council Spire, the same place where she had once been judged. Now, Xylosian monks tended plants that bloomed only under human-sung frequencies. Ketheri children played with holographic puzzles based on Earth logic games. A Velnari artist painted a mural of Earth's oceans, something they had never seen but now dreamed of. Elira stopped by a small fountain. The water rippled in time with a soft hum. Someone nearby was practicing the resonance exercises Ren had shared. She smiled, just a little. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had not rewritten its laws by force. They had simply lived their truth, helping, healing, sharing even when no one was watching, and in doing so, they had changed everything. The galaxy had spent centuries measuring strength in ships and weapons and territory. Earth had shown them that real strength is measured in how many lives you lift, how many minds you open, how many silent signals you send into the dark, hoping to be heard. As Elira turned to leave, Vane appeared beside her. He held out a small seed. "From your world," he said. "We grew it here. It thrived." She took it. It was an oak seed, tough, patient, meant to become something vast. "Plant it where you stand," he said, "so others remember that even the tallest tree begins with a single act of trust." She nodded. She would. Back on Earth, children still looked up at the night sky. But now they didn't just wonder what was out there. They knew someone was listening, and somewhere, in the quiet hum of 1,000 worlds learning to heal, humanity's true strength echoed, not as a roar, but as a promise the galaxy had been stunned. Now, it was hopeful, and hope, it turned out, was the most powerful force of all.